Hello, this is Father Vladimir and I welcome you back to our online Orthodox Christian cooking show, and today we have a very special episode because I am in it. We don't have any guests today on our program, but I will be speaking and I will be showing you something very important, and as you can gather from the title of this show, it's about Prosphora. And not just simply Prosphora, but the Prosphora using the sourdough starter. Everyone knows that I am big on making sourdough bread for our coffee hours and other occasions, but I also do make my Prosphora using sourdough starter. So, what is sourdough starter? It's a colony of good bacteria and yeast, and they live together in symphony, and they produce something like this, very bubbly, dough-like, actually like batter consistency. But anyway, that's a sourdough. It smells very yeasty, a little bit of acidity you can have, but in it's actually, if you were to taste, which I don't recommend to taste raw sourdough starter, but I did taste it just to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. It tastes sour. It actually tastes very sour when it's not diluted. So for my recipe for sourdough base Prosphora, I use 2 cups of water, and I'm fortunate enough to have this pretty big commercial mixer in which I will mix the dough. So I use 2 cups of water, purified water, mixed with a little bit of holy water from the Jordan feast. Now I add half a cup, which will be 2 of these ladles that I was holding, half a cup of starter, to my water, and I will make sure that my starter is all dissolved, which will take me just a little bit. I need to move around actually. We'll get in a second a whisk from my drum. So I just whisk it to make sure that my starter dissolves. Can you see it? Again. So my starter dissolves well. Now I have already prepared here 6 cups of flour, and you have to be you have to kind of see what the weather is like. If it is humid, you might need less flour. If it is too dry, you might need to add flour, or otherwise. I don't remember which one is which. But anyway, it depends on the humidity in the air. But I start again 2 cups of water, half a cup of starter, and 6 cups of flour with a pinch of salt in the flour, and I add all of it into this big mixing bowl. Alright, we're now ready to put our machine to work, and again I'm just gonna put my machine together, and I put on the lowest speed possible, and I just start. Before I turn the machine on, I will start mixing. It's gonna make a lot of noise, but I also have a spray bottle just in case the dough is too dry. I would like to spray a little bit of water to help it moving, but your dough has to be very, very stiff. It's not like any dough like you make for the bread or any other bakery. It has to be incredibly stiff, and hopefully once it's mixed I'm gonna show you how it looks. So I'm gonna start it, gonna make some noise now. you may not hear me as well with this machine, so but we're gonna let it run for a second. Mixing the dough for a few minutes, and I can tell that it's pretty dry. I'm gonna move the camera to show you. It's not coming together, so it will need a little bit of water, but I will show you how it looks. It's been usually when there is enough moisture, it would come in a bowl by now, but it isn't, so I'll show you how it looks. So I'm gonna grab the camera, and this is how it looks right now. You can see that it's not coming together well, so I'm just gonna spray a little bit of water, and after a few sprays there will be more action. As you can see, it's coming in one nice ball of dough. My dough has come together into a ball, and I took it out of the bowl just to show you how stiff it is. It's really hard to knead in your hands. It's so stiff that it's actually it's really hard to squeeze even. But don't worry, because if you think it's too stiff of a dough, by tomorrow morning there will be some liquid produced in the fermentation process, and it's gonna be just fine. But now what we're gonna do with this bowl, we're gonna leave the dough for overnight rising, about 12 to 14 hours. This dough will rise in this vessel here, and then we will continue tomorrow morning with the video to show you how to put together the prosphora. Now, since the dough is rising, I would like to take a few minutes and to tell you about the equipment you will need to finish your prosphora. So here I have a few things that you might need if you will get into baking prosphora. And first we'll talk about this part. These are seals or stamps, if you wish. They are different size. Some of them can be square, some of them can be round, some of them have only writing IS, XS, Nika, XC, rather Nika. Basically the abbreviation for Jesus Christ victorious, and the same here. This particular one is the prosphora for Theotokos, and it actually has inverted icon of the Blessed Mother, and once you make a seal, it actually becomes an icon, like an imprinted icon of the Blessed Theotokos. There are some other available online seals that have just a letter, big letter M, an abbreviation for Mary. So anyway, these are my favorite. Actually, these are not. They kind of my favorite. I like to use all three of these. I don't particularly like this one because it's kind of old and the lettering is already not coming as good on the dough as I would like it, so I would not recommend anything. And there are some nice steel or brass seals available online that you might want to invest, but this particular one I don't like. So for my purposes I use mostly these two and this one that I purchased a few years back. This one on the other side has the Greek style, for the Greek style prosphora, seal for the Greek style prosphora. I rarely, if ever, use this side because I use the Slavic tradition, the Kiev or Moscow tradition, to make 5 loaves for each divine liturgy. So this is what I will be using for this episode, one of these seals. I will put some links where you can purchase or find the seals online. And for this particular seal you will also need cutters. The best way is to get yourself a set of these cutters, and there are 11 different sizes, you know, from very very large one, which is about, I would say, maybe 4 inches, I think, is the largest one, and the smallest one is I don't know, quarter of an inch, and everything in between. So my favorite size that I use for the seal, I use about 2 inches for the top, 2 inches in diameter for the top, which will bear the seal, and the 2 3/4 of an inch diameter for the bottom, which will be the bottom of the Prosphora, then the top bearing the seal. And tomorrow I will show when the dough is risen and ready to be worked with, I will show you how I put together my Prosphora. Right, our dough has been rising for about 12 hours overnight, and what I did, I put our dough in a plastic bag, you know, to cover the entire container so it doesn't form a crust on top. So make sure to do that, otherwise you will have a crust that dries out on top of the dough. So this is how my dough looks today. It's pretty silky. If you're wondering how long do I need to rice the dough, my suggestion, not to rice, to mix. When you mix the dough the night before, I suggest to mix it for about 15 minutes continually, so it becomes pretty silky, and you know, it's gonna be stiff, but it also at the same time will be very silky. In addition, overnight gluten will develop as well. So I do have, even with the, I wish you can see it, but even with the dough being covered, because it was such a stiff and dry dough, I have a little bit of skin formed on top, but it's not really crucial because I can deal with that. But if you left it uncovered, you would really be in a little bit of trouble, because that skin would be really tough and thick. So I'm gonna just turn over my dough on my kneading board, and what I want to do now with this dough, to give it additional kneading by hand. And the reason I'm doing it is to get out as many bubbles from the rising overnight as I possibly can, so when I form my loaves for the Prosphora, they all more or less are the same form when they rise. What's happening now, I just get, I'll show you what I mean. See all these air pockets? If I had a rolling machine, I would run the dough through the rolling machine like 20 to 40 times, and it literally would get, there are some places there is no pockets at all. And what it would do to the dough, it would be so air-free that you wouldn't even notice any air pockets. And what it actually does to the dough, it makes it rise. When you form into the little loaves, it makes it rise evenly without you know, becoming like these deformed mushrooms sometimes. You know what I mean. Those of you who bake the Prosphora on a regular basis, you know that sometimes things like that happen. They kind of rise in the places we don't want them to rise. And to avoid that, one of the tricks that I learned before the second rise, before you form the loaves, you do this kneading. It's actually a good idea to do what I did before, to cut the dough into smaller pieces, because you see it's already the air pockets are diminishing. I will not do this kneading to the point when it's perfect, because I really don't have time to do that. If I had a machine, rolling machine, it would be really easy to do this, and I would be, you know, done like in 5 minutes. I can do the job. Otherwise, but by hand will take about, you know, an hour of kneading. We're ready to roll out our dough for the bottom portion of the prosphora, and you just form a nice little ball, put a little bit flour underneath so it doesn't stick, and just start rolling it out into the thickness that you want, which is about, I'm trying to keep it about half an inch thickness of my dough. So by the time it rises, it will be, you know, by the time the prosphora is finished, it's gonna be good, probably 2.5 inches tall. But you know, every time you make prosphora, things happen kind of unpredictable, and every batch is actually different from the one you made yesterday or a week ago. So you kind of have to trust God on the way things turn out with the prosphora. So this is pretty close to the thickness that I want my prosphora to be, and I'm just guessing, but my estimation that this sheet of dough, this amount of dough will produce about 20 loaves, a pretty decent size for the lamb. For the commemoration prosphora, I do make it much smaller, and maybe there will be another video for us to do. But now the thickness of the dough is pretty much where I want it to be. I just want to put a little bit more flour underneath, so when I cut it doesn't stick. But that's pretty much where I want my dough to be. So now traditionally you would want to have your baking sheet covered with beeswax. I didn't do that because I bake it at very high temperature. My prosphora, I will explain to you why, and it will just smoke too much, and I really don't have facilities to do that. But you can cover your baking sheet with the aluminum, which is you know, which is good, and it will help you to get the prosphora out of the baking sheet. But now I use the bigger size cutting ring first, and I make, you know, as many rings as I can, and I just immediately place them on the baking sheet, and you know, as many as I can. I'm estimating it's gonna be around 15-20. Almost done with the bottom parts. I have 2 more to cut, so I'll show you. As I said, that this amount of dough will produce about 20 prosphora, and we are just cutting the 20th piece right now. So it actually will have enough dough to produce to make more. I think if I did it conservatively, I could have probably made, no, actually, wait a sec, no, we have 20 prosphoras. I probably could have made 25 to 30 prosphoras, but you know, for the purposes of the video, I just wanted to make it shorter. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna cover this this prosphora with a baking sheet, baking sack. It's a baker's sack kind of cover, and on top of it I also will place a plastic garbage bag, so again, as to prevent crust for forming. And this dough will rise for at least half an hour, these bottom rings. So I'm gonna just take it and put it aside now. With the dough that is left over, I put it in a bowl, and I'm gonna put a little bit more flour. I put it in a bowl and I knead it again. I form it into another ball, and this is where my tops will come from. Some people divide the dough and they reserve half for the top, half for the bottom. I like to do this way. This way I kind of prevent any dough from being wasted. And if there is any dough that is a little bit too much, I form it into, like, if there's leftover dough, I form it into the little balls for the likia bread, which is never wasted. So let me just. All right, we have another little bowl. Let me just put a little bit more flour in here. Another little bowl, and now we roll it out. Now the tops of Prosphora, it will be considerably thinner than the bottom part. And as you remember from yesterday, in the beginning of the video, there's instruction on what equipment you need. I will be cutting the tops with a smaller in diameter cutter. Well, for the top of the Prosphora is about 1/4 of an inch in thickness, and as you recall, I have 20 bottoms, so I need to come up with 20 tops. And again, you see the difference? This was for the bottoms, this was for the tops. And again, I need to cut out 20, and after I'm done cutting the tops, I will show you how I put the seal on top of each. So, you know, if you're watching this video and you are in the parish where a priest perhaps either too busy or, you know, he's not capable of making Prosphora, you can really help your parish by doing this, because you know, just surprise your priest. If you're watching and you're learning how to do the Prosphora, bring one Saturday for Vespers and say, Father, I made Prosphora. I learned it from Father Vlad, and this is for you to try on Sunday. I'm sure he's gonna be thrilled for many reasons. For one, that he doesn't have to do it himself, and then of course your Prosphora will be terrific, and he will love it so much that he will ask you to make the Prosphora over and over again. It's time to put our seal on the Prosphora tops, and as you see, I made 20 tops. And what I do, I have this seal. This is the seal that will go on top of the dough. But before I just dip it in the flour, my top. So it does two things. It prevents, well, actually it does only one thing. It does two things. It prevents from sticking to the bottom of the board, but also it prevents from sticking to the to my seal. So what I do now, I just gently press, gently enough, not to, but strong enough to, gently enough not to go like all the way through and cut with the seal, because seal has sharp edges. Cut it all the way through, but also strong enough to leave this imprint on the Prosphora that has ICXC Nika, and it's abbreviation for Jesus Christ Victorious. So I put these little tops on my little tray here, and I do 20 of those, because as you remember, we have 20 bottoms. So I do 20 of these as well. Our tops are ready to be set for rising, and I usually give them about 15 minutes to 20 minutes rise, because it took me about 15 minutes to make the seals. Oh, maybe not 15, maybe 8 minutes or 10 minutes, but I will let them sit for another 15 minutes, covered with a cloth, and I will put also a plastic bag to prevent crust from forming. Okay, our Prosphora pieces have been rising for about 30 minutes, half an hour. You won't see considerable rise with the sourdough. You can just see slightly risen, poofed. But before I finish this Prosphora, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna put both pieces together, and for those of you who made Prosphora and those who are from the Orthodox Church, you may know what it represents. But those two pieces of Prosphora represents that our Lord Jesus Christ was truly God and truly man at the same time. So before putting together, I just spray the bottoms with water. Don't be afraid to use a lot of water, because it will do two things. It will help the tops to adhere easier, and it will also prevent from forming the crust, and the final rise in the oven would also help to create that thin, perfect crust that will not be too hard, will not be too soft. So now what I do, I take each individual tops, and I just need to spray off with the water this flour from the bottom that accumulated, and then I just place the top over the bottom of the Prosphora, and I do this with all of my tops, and we will be back once I'm done. It's now together. Now what I'm gonna do is to pierce the Prosphora with the wire, and usually you can use a paper clip, just unfold it, and I use it for my Prosphora. And basically what you do, you make, traditionally you're supposed to put 5 piercing to signify the 5 wounds that our Lord received on the cross when he was crucified. But I do additional piercing, because basically what it does help to control, from the bubbling. It depends. Sometimes I have to judge, see which side is already being pushed more. So I do a bunch of this piercing, and what it does, it allows some of the air bubbles that are formed, especially in between these two layers, to escape and not to be really out of form while baking. So again, this is gonna take me a while to do, but after I'm done, we're going to put it in the oven, and I will show you. Prosphora is ready to go in the oven, but before I do that, I'm gonna spray my Prosphora again generously with the water, and just to make sure that pretty much all of it is covered. While we were putting the Prosphora together, I turned the oven to 550 degrees Fahrenheit. And I know for many of you who do bake Prosphora, you might be a little bit startled by such high temperature, but don't worry. My Prosphora, we will be baking only for 8, perhaps 10 minutes. So with a higher temperature, you lower the time needed to bake. But I will check on it in 4 minutes. I will perhaps, if needed, I will take it out of the oven and to poke additional holes in the Prosphora to help it rising, or prevent rising from in certain parts where I see the bubbles being formed. Otherwise, I may just spray it one more time with the water, and after another 4 minutes, which will be 8 to 10 minutes, the prosphora should be ready. And before I put it also in the oven, it's a good idea on the bottom shelf to put a container with water, maybe a tinfoil pan or some other container, so there is a humidity building in the oven. But here we go. It's my oven is at 550, and I'm gonna put it on the bottom, on the top shelf to bake. Okay, our prosphora has been baking for 5 minutes. Now I'm gonna take it out to see, how it's rising, how it's whether there is any deformity, to help it perhaps press it down a little bit and maybe poke another hole or two. So it's at this point it's gonna be so hot, you better use some sort of gloves that will prevent you from burning your hands. And you can see in some of the prosphoras it's beginning to brown already, and I see few problems with some walls, but nothing major. I will give it another really heavy spray. I don't feel or see any necessity to poke any more holes. Seems to be rising evenly. I just need to, again, as I said, I like to spray it down really hot with water, and as you do that it actually begins to evaporate. Actually, now that I see, I might just do some poking additional holes, because I see some portion of the prosphora is rising not the way I want. And now I'm gonna turn my baking sheet around, because unfortunately my oven doesn't bake evenly, and I'm gonna put it back for another 10 minutes. Depending on the oven, you might not need as long of a baking time as I do, but my oven is not perfect, so I'm gonna put it back for another 5 to 6 minutes. So my total baking time will be around 12 minutes of this prosphora. Our prosphora is done. It looks beautiful. If you can see, it's began to brown a little bit on the top. It's okay. I know that some people are, you cannot brown, but it's okay. It's a little bit of the browning on the top is fine. I would let it sit a little bit, because it's extremely hot, before you take it up for the resting period. And for the resting time, what you want to do, if you have perhaps a cooling rag like that, you want to place your prosphora here, cover it with a dry towel, the prosphora, then on top I put a wet towel, and then cover it with the plastic, so the prosphora is resting, and this crust, instead of becoming hard, it will become kind of soft, and it will not be crumbly, when the time comes to cut the prosphora. So if you have any questions about this sourdough prosphora, use the comments below the recipe to ask you questions, perhaps offer you suggestions, and of course don't forget to share this video with your friends.